I live in Bath.
How do you spell your last name?
Gagnon.
Oh, I know you.
Bruce Gagnon.
I've seen your name.
Yeah, I've been around a long time. I worked for an organization called the Global Network Against Weapons and Nuclear Power in Space, which is 26 years old. And we were created to stop the arms race from moving into space. And actually the warships at BIW, the Aegis destroyers, are outfitted with so-called missile defense interceptors that play a key role in this new Star Wars program. So that's kind of my connection to BIW. I also want to introduce our friend Peter Woodruff, who 3 years ago retired?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Okay, 3 years ago. Peter and I, we had a radio show at Bowdoin College for 6 years, I think. And one of the reasons why we gave it up was because they wanted to start requiring fingerprint IDs of all the DJs. We had a ethical, moral disagreement with having them. Well, because we'd been there 6 years, they knew who we were, we'd never done anything wrong.
Why did they?
Oh, why did they want to do it?
Are you two talking Bath Iron Works?
No, we're talking at Bowdoin College.
Oh, Bowdoin?
The radio station. No, the radio station. We had a radio show there for 6 years.
But whose idea was that?
And they got a new security company there, and they wanted to start. So anyway, we quit. But one of the other reasons why we quit was because Peter couldn't talk anymore. Because after being exposed to 30-some years of, when you cut steel, it creates dust, and you breathe in that dust, it has begun to create a situation inside of Peter's body where he's not able to speak anymore. His brain is working fine, he can email you all day, he can write things all day, but he can't take thoughts and turn them into language now very easily. And it's something that he's told me has been going on for years and years and years at the shipyard, but nobody ever, it's like one of these secret things.
BIW won't acknowledge.
Nobody talks about it. And he went to the company doctor, right? You know, the HMO through the company, right? The company doctor. He went to them and asked to be checked out. Over on the table?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Sorry.
He asked to be checked out, and the company, the doctor's first statement to him was, "Are you trying to hurt the company?" To like discourage him, you know what I mean? So anyway, I just wanted to start with that, so that as we talk about Bath Iron Works, we should remember that there are many workers there that would rather do something else. In fact, Peter and I, he came to me one day many years ago and said, "I'd like to start a petition saying we'd like to build wind turbines at BIW. And would you help me?" And so we created this petition, and he and other workers got 800 workers to sign it. And then I said, "Well, what do you want to do now?" And he said, "Well, I'm not sure." And I said, "How about if we go to the Times Record and have a meeting with them, and you present these petitions to them and see if they'll cover it as a story?" So we did. James McCarthy, the former editor, now gone, he wrote an editorial congratulating Peter, saying whoever thought the Navy base would close, maybe we should start planning for the transition of Bath Iron Works because of, you know, can the country continue to afford these very expensive warships? Our economy's in tatters. And Peter also made a bumper sticker, "Save BIW, build wind turbines," and he handed it out to his fellow workers, and he told me they put them on their lunch pail and things like that inside the plant.
Were there any repercussions?
No, because maybe because the company knew that they had support on the outside, and they'd rather not stir something up. So anyway, just wanted to kind of ground you in all of that.
Editorial, and did you get any feedback from that?
No. Now, things I want to bring up here, and you might want to take a crack at answering some of these questions, okay? And let me read the questions first, and then if there's a question that stands out for you, we'll start there. Where do these destroyers go when they leave? VIW. How much do they cost? What is their mission? What do they do? What impacts do they have in places where they're ported around the world? And who is responsible? Who's responsible? Now that could, but I want to give some background first. In 2003, remember shock and awe, Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. Oops, they're not really there after all. Well, the first shot fired was from an Aegis destroyer. And driving that ship late at night, in the dark of night, just off the coast of Iraq, was a young lieutenant woman by the name of Becky Farley from Washington State, Seattle area. And some years later, she had gotten out of the Navy. She was in Maine because she had been stationed in Maine at one point. And she came to a talk I gave in Damariscotta, and I noticed her in the audience. I noticed this blind look in her eyes, this blind stare that all veterans seem to have, you know, they've been in war. And afterwards, I was at my table and people come up and talk to me. I saw her standing to the side, and she waited till every single person was gone, and then came up to me and my partner Mary Beth and said, "Can I talk to you?" And we said, "Well, you know, we haven't eaten yet. Why don't you come with us?" So she came with us, and we became friends. And she told us this story that she's driving the ship as the cruise missiles, first strike attack weapon, are fired right before her eyes from the ship. The first cruise missile fired in Iraq in shock and awe in 2003 is from her ship, the USS Cowpens. And after her shift was over, after the missiles had been fired, she went down into the galley and the TV was on CNN, and they were showing the pictures of Baghdad blowing up, and the crew was all cheering and screaming and hollering, "We're number one, we did it, we fired the first one." She just went into severe depression. And today she suffers from severe PTSD and can't even hold down a job. She's a brilliant young woman, but can't hold down a job as a result of that experience on one of these warships. Right before the election of Obama, the first time, when he was first ran against John McCain, I was at the home, you might know Selma and Sternlead, and her husband Hirsch, they just lived down the street. And Hirsch said to me, "Bruce, you ever heard of the Crown family in Chicago?" I said, "No." He said, "Go home and Google it." I remember this right before the election. We're talking about Obama and everything. Was he going to be any good, all that stuff. So I went home and I Googled the Crown family in Chicago, and I learned that they were the majority stockholders in the General Dynamics Corporation that owned Bath Iron Works. And they had been creating Obama as a candidate throughout his entire career in the Senate in Illinois, where he held the world's record for voting present on controversial issues, because they were setting him up to become president of the United States, and they didn't want him to have a record of taking positions on any controversial things. So like 100 times on the most controversial issues, he would vote president. So anyway, they raised money for him within the military-industrial complex, within the national Jewish community that they were a part of, across the country, to help him get elected. And as it turned out, he got more money for the military-industrial complex than John McCain did in that election when he first ran for president of the United States. 2008? Okay.
In 2008?
No, the first one, whatever year it was. What year was it? 2008? Okay. All right.
How much?
No, 8 years.
How much is the figure?
No, I don't know. I read about it in Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine. They had an article after the election saying that Obama
Were
got
they pleased with his presidency?
Well, let me go on with my story. One of the first things he did after becoming president was to tell the Navy that they had to build the Zumwalt. You've heard of the Zumwalt stealth destroyer. The Navy didn't want it because it was going to punch a hole in their shipbuilding budget. See, normal Aegis destroyers cost $1.5 billion each, which is a lot of money. The Zumwalt was going to cost between $4 and $7 billion each. That's quite a big difference. And so the Navy just said, we don't want it, it's too expensive. And Obama said you have to build it, trying to get other Mainers to go to Jeju Island, because I feel like we have a special relationship because our ships go there. And so 6 other Mainers have gone there. And so when they come back, we try to get people in our state to understand what's going on. And you might have heard the last 2 christenings, we had nonviolent protests at the christenings and were arrested. This last time, April 1st, 9 of us were arrested. And prior to that, the year before, when the first Zumwalt was christened, which we think is a blasphemous word, by the way, 12 of us were arrested that first time. And so the second time, 3 of us were arrested for the second time. And so we're now facing trial in September and in Bath, at the courthouse in Bath. And
When is it?
we don't have the trial date yet. So let me talk about conversion now, because this is what, for several years, every time we go to Bath Iron Works, we're carrying signs calling for the conversion, with pictures of trains, commuter rail systems, pictures of wind turbines, things like that. There's a study from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst Economics Department that tells us that military spending is the worst way to create jobs, because they say it's capital intensive. It eats up a lot of money and creates fewer jobs than if you spend it on anything else. Okay? You hire teachers, nurses, build hospitals, schools, you build rail, you double the jobs at Bath Iron Works if you built commuter rail systems, running up and down the coast of Maine, getting people from, Rockland, Brunswick, Freeport, down to Portland to their jobs. We double the jobs at Bath Iron Works if we built rail, according to these studies from UMass Amherst. So we've been trying to bring this message to the people of the community to try to create a momentum, if you will, to get people to understand this, and then to begin to help us advocate. Because as I told you in the opening, we know that there's at least 800 workers at Bath Iron Works, and probably a lot more, that would be happy to make something else, something they felt good about, something.
And maybe not get laid off like they do.
Yeah,
It's time?
it is time.
Oh, okay. And all right, I'm going to wrap it up real quick. And that they would feel good about, and it would help us deal with our greatest problem of all, which is called climate change. And the military has the biggest carbon footprint on the planet. It's the biggest polluter on the planet. If we don't deal with climate change, now, the future generations are sunk. And so we've got to convert places like Bath Iron Works to create these technologies that give us a little bit of a chance to survive in the future and make sure our children and grandchildren survive.
Under the current administration,
Well, under any administration, I hope
That's
I've
true.
shown
yeah,
it's
you made that
difficult.
clear.
I will let you all know when our trial comes up. Maybe you'll come and sit in the audience. It helps when the judge sees people in the audience.
It does, yeah. I think
It really
isn't
does.
that terrible? But
Thank you each very much.
You're welcome.